Unfortunately, Noms being down means that they aren't going to be able to make use of this favorable zone pull. And in fact, Cringe is just going to start getting lobby sprayed. Yeah, a bunch of different teams now taking shots at him.
Not only getting some of that damage, but look at the builds. He's expended almost every last ounce, every piece. Doesn't matter what he finds from here on out, because it does look like he's getting targeted by Sado and Cringe and Noms. The day 2 struggles will continue as they go down. Jump on board Robon and Axe Force. Starting the day off spectacular with a big win. And a win to where they only really had to be patient. Let the players down low, take each other out, and they could just slide smoothly into a win, bumping up to about 333 points, especially thanks to some of those eliminations and 2 teams going down worth of placement so far. And you kind of look at the leaderboard there on the side, that placement points have just now begun to set in. So going down here at this stage of the game with how much you've played so far would be a nightmare.
I'm really behind, but ultimately Vaniac and Swizzy are continuing to just make consistent end games. And if they can keep doing that, Jacob, it will be hard for anyone to catch up.
Almost impossible. So this is almost the stage of the game that you'd want a team like Swizzy and Vanya to go down. That way you can try to maximize the amount of point differential that you're going to get. As Kirwan Hedra, 41 below the damage threshold, currently ticking. Every 7 or so seconds, they're going to take 25 shield or HP damage until Storm Surge either deactivates with 3 players going down, or they get above the threshold, which it's not going to be the easiest thing, as they're slowly but surely falling further and further below that threshold, giving them less and less of a chance of surviving it.
This is a really tough spot to be in, yeah. Try to get some shots off when players rotating, but lack of players around them makes it really hard. CZB and Nathan come strolling through, but they ain't got the HP to fight yet. They will just get taken out. Kerwin doing his best to fight with that banana pops. And the Navala might get some free loot here as a result of that one. And look who's posturing for height, Jacob. Okay, Cammy and Seti. We've been bigging them up this game because the setup just looks so perfect from the mid game. And they are just barely above Surge, but sitting here on top of height means they'll get opportunities to deal that damage. Yeah, see right there. Been a Navala coming through. They'll be able to get some tags off on that if possible. Mustache and Alabuka down there as well. They gotta be careful. Alabuka actually getting taken down.
Man, because of where the actual landscape is, players are going to have to choose to go in between crevices, in between mountains. So there's going to be few and few people as this zone continues that will be able to look up and try to contest a team like Seti and Cammy. But there is one right here, Swizzy and Vaniac, that I feel like have everything in their arsenal ready to contest, but with how well they've been playing so far on a consistent basis, just kind of going through from one zone to the next, using the wings, combining it with the Flowberry Fizz that can cover so much distance like this, making the rotations was the easiest in the lobby so far.
What a rotation, that was super clean. The wings get them into a nice spot. And again now, gives them an opportunity to build that top out, maybe find some opportunities for refreshes. Reason and Vidil again eagerly looking around for players to capitalize on as well, and I think they've spotted some potential targets. Vidil again being his aggressive self, just dropped down onto the wall instantly. Reason urging him to come back up.
On the side of the mountain, everybody just trying to sprinkle and waterfall down, recycle as many of the builds as possible, because you see almost everybody is running thin on those materials. And as soon as Robon goes for a little bit of a peek, tries to make a play, he instantly regrets it. That was Vaniac and Swizzy who start to aggress on that situation. A lot of damage being dealt. They're looking for the elimination, but things turn sideways. Swizzy dropped down to 47 HP until he's eventually knocked down altogether. You see him instantly passing on over those resources because he knows Vaniac cannot be the hero and save the day, at least not for now.
And we praise them for their aggressive play style, but that is sometimes how it goes for you. You can overheat, you can overcook. And so now we're in another game watching to see whether or not Vaniac can get another solo clutch.
These are the moments right here that a champion is made in Vaniac, to where he's just outlasting these solo points, where this is an opportunity for everybody to really pick up the pace and try to close the gap. Vanille goes down. Reason is hunting for eliminations, trying to get the resources, even if it means staggering himself back in the outside of zone.
Yeah, Reason doing his best now to clutch up. And I mean, it's a nice spot for him to be in as he gets up the hill. A lot of players still down there. Oh my goodness, yeah. No solo clutch for Vaniac. It'll be Cammy and Seti to take him out. Queasy left alone with no HP, and he will eventually fall as well. Everyone just dropping like flies. And Seti and Cammy are the real beneficiaries of this one. The zone pool was perfect for them to just sit above as everyone scrambles up this hill. Mappy, another solo that gets taken down. And it's finally a game where Veno and Tayson look like maybe they can squeeze some good points out of this one.
Yeah, it's the top 10 where you get half of the points. It's the top 5 where you get 75% or more of those points. So everybody here in this game is just making every single second worth it, especially Seti and Cammy on the high ground. Even without the water bending, they're putting down an immense amount of pressure, forcing everybody down here to interact with one another instead of looking up.
Loving what I'm seeing here from Tayson and Veno. A nice find. And those materials will just keep them pushing, right? The goal is to here get to the 2v2 situation and then try and beat Seti and Cammy out on height. But they got to start clearing out some more of these solos here, and we are at that stage, we are at that moment. Seti, Cammy versus Veno and Tayson. Who will be able to find the finishing blows?
Cammy's just not scared. He's ready to drop down, forward, in and out of the zone, but there's a lot of space being commanded by Veno and Tayson on the low ground. But the inevitable will happen. These two teams will drop down low, but Cammy, he's taking most of the damage. Great shots by Veno, and he finally seals the deal, taking down Cammy, but he's in a 1v1. Tayson gets traded out, but easy peasy for Veno as he closes out the game.
Veno has been in many 1v2s against Seti and Cammy. He knows that feeling. He's been here before, and he won't let that moment pass him by again. A big win, a statement win for Veno and Tayson.
And that is how you really pick up the pace and start to build that momentum. And it was you, it was Minnie, it was Frankie on the desk talking about, do we press the panic button? How early is too early? Well, Veno, he probably went over to your house, he heard you talking, he took that panic button, he threw it right out the window. He said, not in this major, no panic button for us.
I mean, that is huge for them, right? Talking to Veno before the competition today, he did not sound in high spirits, right? He was starting to feel quite down about the situation that they are facing. And it's good to see here in game 8, they get the right cards dealt to them and they play the game perfectly. A big win here for Veno and Tayson. And surely now, again, that keeps them fighting in this competition, Jacob. And that's what day 2 is about. Can you have that pop-off game that pushes you into the top 10?
Yeah, it is going to be huge because that was over 150 or so point game for them, moving up the ranks of that leaderboard. But let's throw it on over to Analyst because there was so much action to break down after that game.
There really was, and there was a classic finish. Who doesn't love seeing Veno taking on Cammy and Seti, given the history between these players? And who doesn't love seeing the confidence of Veno and Tayson on that low ground, waiting for the high ground heroes to drop down, Benny Miner?
Yeah, they've awoken. It's their first single-digit placement all weekend, and finally, what better day to do it on than the second day as well. Really, really love to see it. It's what we spoke about at the beginning of the show. These guys are getting to endgame, but they're not going the full distance. You can see going into this endgame, they had a couple of eliminations. Their Storm Surge is pretty good, but they just needed to combine it now with a few of those refreshes. This is exactly what I wanted to see. Look at that from Tayson and Veno, hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder, looking at the same player, looking for the same refresh, and then continuing their game on. This is what we could see from this team, and this is what we wanted to see, and I'm really happy for them to go.
It's almost crazy to see what happens when they make it to the end game with materials, with loot, with shields, with everything they need to play the end game out. And once they've done that, they not only secured the VR, they did it with a good amount of eliminations, and this is the Tayson and Veno that we're used to seeing.
It's fantastic just seeing how they're playing the different layers, how they're playing all their enemies. And to be fair, maybe they didn't have as many enemies to fight as they, you know, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. Basically, there were a lot of solos in that final zone to Qatar. Did they just have it a little bit easy?
I mean, like I was mentioning, they had enough loot, they had enough materials to kind of play together and use that chemistry that they've already built up. They had their tarps out, they were waiting for those solos to drop down low because, you know, when you run out of materials, you run out of loot, you're cracked. You gotta just keep dropping down layers because you don't have enough mats to build up. Unless you're Vaniac, you try to do that crazy wing strat. We're not gonna talk about what happened to Vaniac in that last game, but they made it happen. They got the job done, and they got those refreshes when they needed them most.
Oh, no, Takata, I'm not as nice as you are. I'm European. I definitely want to talk about what happened to Vaniac, but let's take a look at the leaderboard. I don't know if we have a replay of what happened with Vaniac. I'm calling it the feathered flow jump when you get your wings, you take a gulp of foam reapers, you challenge for height as a solo, and you get taken down straight away. But to be fair to Swizzy and Vaniac, again, getting a solid placement in that game, Miniminer.
Yeah, really solid for Swizzy and Vaniac. Big questions about them from me going into today. Can they do it when their zone is on their drop spot? For me, though, looking at Cammy and Seti here, 4 places moving up, now into that second place position. Really, really like the way they played this end game. They kind of just played textbook Cammy and Seti. It reminded me a lot of how they won in the semifinals. That very first game of upper bracket day 1, they were on the dead side of zone, and they used all those spare materials that they could get from that side to then take height and just completely hold it down to Carter. This is exactly what we want to see from this duo because we've seen them pop off from height before. We haven't seen too much of it this weekend, but it's nice to see them finally pick up a win.
Yeah, I love what I heard. Levin, he was like, ooh, Cammy and Seti on high ground. This is interesting. And look what they're able to do. We saw them in the previous majors kind of change up that original lower to mid ground layer playstyle and start, playing high ground a bit more. And they're continuing to do so now. And you can see that it is paying off, not only securing a good amount of eliminations from above, but even making it to those last circles. They did go down in the 2 versus 2, but if you're going to go down in a 2v2, at least let it be against Tayson and Venom.
Yeah, I thought this was a team that was destined for the win, of course, with that hype, but Veno there was just different gravy, the way that he was able to do that. He's had that before, of course, that invitational, infamous moment, and yeah, I think it was a difficult one for him there, but I think he'd be really, really happy that they're able to close out the win. But Cammy and Seti, they're looking really, really good, and I'm liking how they're playing at the moment.
All it takes really is a solid victory royale for these boys. Get like 5 elims to your name, get that victory royale, and you are taking over the lead. Although, of course, that does depend on how Swizzy and Vaniac perform in the next game. I do believe we might actually have a clip of the feathered foe jump, and you can find out what happens when you try and go for the 2v1 versus Cammy and Seti on the high ground. I mean, these boys, it was a real test for them, actually, we have to say, at Takata, because they actually